Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make this cutie. Well, actually part of this cutie. What I'm showing you in the video is how to make 4 legs that are attached like this at the bottom of the animal. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to do, if you're following the pattern, is to crochet up all 4 feet. So that's easy, and from that point it seems just like the doing a 2-leg stuffed animal. But that's where things start to change. So the next thing that you're going to do is take just 2 of those feet and you're going to crochet them together. And for this pattern, and this could be different from other patterns, but for this pattern you're going to crochet them together with 3 stitches. And that little set of stitches makes kind of a bridge that holds these feet together. Let me get that as close as I can get it here and have it still be in focus. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do next. So what I've done, I've got 2 feet here, one that I crocheted and fastened off, and the other one that I crocheted and I still have my working yarn attached. Let me just get this holder off. That's so I keep a stitch marker in my loop if I'm carrying my work around, just so that it doesn't accidentally get pulled back in if I snag it on something. So I have finished stitching this leg, and now I'm going to stitch it to this leg. So what you do is you put the 2 pieces together, and you're going to do 3 stitches to make that bridge. And what I like to do is do the first stitch. Let me just set this aside for a second just so I can get this up close. I like to make the first stitch go into the last stitch before my, you can see where there's a step up where I'm circling around. So this was my last stitch. I want to go into this stitch first, then this one for stitch number 2, and then this one for stitch number 3. So that's what you're going to see me doing here. It's just not going to be quite as easy to see once I get them held together. So I'm going to go, you know what, let me first into this one. Remember, this is going to be into this little hole in that stitch. And then I'm going to go into the next stitch here, and just get that tail out of the way. So I've got something in this stitch here, so this is my next stitch to stitch into. So I put those together, make sure they're nice and pushed up against each other, and now I'm making sure that I've got my thread tight, and I do just a normal single crochet. Now I'm going to do my next one. So for my next one, remember, I'm going into the top of this last stitch that I stitched here, and just by making this stepped up one be in the middle of my 3 stitches, I feel like it anchors that potentially loose thread. So this one has a stitch in it, so I'm going into this one, and make sure that I'm grabbing the working thread and not my tail there, and pull that one through. And now I've got one more to do, and the last one is actually the easiest one to spot, because now there's no weird step or anything like that. So we just do those 3 stitches. All right, now I'm going to fasten that off. And now you can see that this one, like the other one, let me get the stitch marker out of here. Like the other one that we did, pull this up tight. I'm going to tie all these tails after I get all 4 legs together. So for now they can be a little bit loose, but they'll still be allowed to be pulled up and tightened later. So now this one, just like the other one, has the 2 legs attached together with this little 3 stitch bridge holding them together. So the next thing that we're going to do is stitch the 2 pairs of legs together. And what I'm going to do for these guys is do 3 steps on this side, 3 stitches on this side of the bridge, a stitch into the bridge, and 3 stitches on the other side of the bridge. Okay, I've got a slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to find, first of all, on this one, the one closest to me, I'm going to find the 3rd stitch from the bridge. So this is the one that I'm going to stitch into for the bridge. You see that last one there that has got this thread tail coming out of it? So that's my bridge one. So I'm going to stitch 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to start stitching in this one. That's the third one from the bridge. And now I need to find the third one from the bridge on this side. So here's my bridge one. This one's got something in it that's got a stitch in it. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And I've got, oops, get my tails up where I need them to be. So I've got my 2 together here, just getting everything. When you're first starting it, they're not going to want to hold together, but it's okay if they're flopping around and everything. As the only thing that matters is that you get the 2 stitches that you're stitching together. The rest of this can flop around and kind of pivot around, and as you stitch, they're going to sew together and hold together properly. So pull that thread through, just like any other single crochet. So that's 1 stitch before the bridge. And now the next stitch here and here before the bridge. So that's 2. And then the last stitch, 1, whoops, I went too far, 2 into that one. So now I'm going to stitch into my bridge stitches. So that's this one with the tail coming out of it. And on the back side, it's this one with the tail coming out of it. Okay. So regular single crochet. Whoops, make sure I'm catching that. All right, so I've done my 3 stitches before the bridge, my stitch in the bridge, and now I'm going to do the last 3 stitches, which are on this side of the bridge. So that one's already got a stitch in it, so it's this next one here. So it's the next stitch that has no stitch in it. 1 there, and on this one, you can see that one has a stitch in it, so it's going to be this one here. So that's 1. And then it's a little bit easier after you pick up those first ones. So here's this one and this one. And then the last one. 1 there and the next one there. All right, so now I have created a bridge across the middle. Remember I did 3 stitches before the bridge, 1 into the bridge, and then 3 stitches after the bridge. And it's pretty well sealed up on the bottom. You're going to find that the biggest gaps are going to be as you're crocheting around now. So the next thing that we're going to do is crochet around all 4 legs. And just like with the standing crochet, with the normal 2-legged crochet, we might get a little bit of a gap in here when we jump from one leg to the other, but we can seal those up later. So before I do that, I want to tie off these ends. So remember I said we were going to tighten those up and tie. So what I'm going to do is tighten up 2 at a time and tie them together. And then I'm going to snip them off. That way it's really easy to get mixed up and start trying to crochet with your long tails, but you don't want to do that. So these I'm not going to tie quite as tight because they're a little ways away from each other. So I just want them to end up kind of snug across the top, but not really cinching it up. Do those, and then I've also got this one over here. So I'm just going to fasten him off. You don't actually have to fasten these off, but I like to do that because it makes it just feel more secure to me. I don't think it's possible for them to unravel. And make sure I'm cutting the correct tail. So now the only long string I've got is actually my working tail, which is going to make it easier for me as I work around. So the next thing that the pattern tells you to do is stitch around each one of these legs. And each one should be about 12, not about, should be, for this pattern, 12 stitches around. And I'll break it down and tell you in the pattern you're going to do 12 stitches around this leg, 12 stitches around this one, 12 around this one, and 12 around this one. And as you saw when we were putting that together, it can be a little tricky sometimes to see which stitches you're supposed to stitch into and which one is the bridge. I'm actually hoping that I made a mistake here so that I can show you how to correct it, because it's really, really easy to correct it if you mess up. So don't stress too much about making sure you're getting the right stitches for all of these bridges. If something is off, it's really, really easy to fix. So let's see if I made a mistake and how we can fix it. So I need to do 12 stitches around this leg. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's see. Oh, I didn't make a mistake. I've only got one stitch left here to do. So we'll do that one. 12. And I just realized I forgot to put a stitch marker in my first one. I should have done that. So I'm going to count back 12. So I just did. Let me get this up where you can see it. So I just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is where I started. Just we'll want that at the end. I'm a big believer in my stitch markers. All right, so that was 12 around that foot, that leg. So let's see if I made a mistake on the next one. So let's see. This one's already got a stitch in it. You can see it's pulling it as I tug them apart. So I want to do in this one. So that's our first one. 1, 11, 'So this one's a little bit unclear. I think this is the next one that I want to stitch into. Either way, I will, because it makes it 12. But if I came up one stitch short, I could have stitched 2 into that 11th stitch and gotten up to 12 around that leg. But that's 12, so I'll work with that one. So let's see if we made a more clear mistake on this one. So I'm not going to stitch in that one that's already got a clear stitch in it. So I'm going to start with this one here. 1, mistake. So we've got a couple of stitches here. So that was 10. So I need to do 2 more stitches to end up in this one, but I've got 1, 2, 3 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do 1. So that's 11. And now I'm supposed to be ending up in this one here, but I've got 2 stitches to go. So I'm going to do a decrease. So I'm going to single crochet 2 together, and that is now stitch number 12 in the one where my stitch marker started. So that's what you do if you come around and you don't match up. If you're falling a little bit short and you have more stitches than, if you need to do some extra stitches to get up to where you are, like that one just was, do a decrease. So you can do 2 together and end up with the 1 stitch. If you're a little bit short, you can do an increase in there. So if you came up to the end and it was your last stitch and you were only on 11, you could do 11, 12 in the same stitch and get a little bit of an increase in there. But the important thing is that you want to have 12 stitches around each leg for a total of 20 or 48 stitches all the way around the body. So this is the time while you're doing that to go ahead and make any corrections that need to be made because of the kind of weirdness of how all of this is put together. And any increases or decreases that you do at these little spots where the legs come together are never going to be visible in the finished piece. You won't see them. It's a nice hidden spot to correct any possible errors. So the other thing that I'm going to show you is, again, just like with the standing 2 legs that you're used to doing, there can be a bit of a gap there when you jump from leg to leg. And just like that one, you'll go in. I like to wait until I've got all of usually the next step after putting the legs together is just doing straight single crochet for a few rows. And I like to get that little tube of fabric built so that I can really clearly see where those holes are. And then I'll just go back with some of my scraps that I cut off and just a tapestry needle and just tie a quick knot on the inside with a matching thread. And again, you're never going to see those. And it ends up being a nice join, putting all those legs together and then working as just a single body up from there. And again, this is what the finished legs are going to look like. And just in case you're curious, on this one I did make some mistakes and I had to do some increases and decreases at those leg joins. And you can't tell. You just can't see them at all. I also ended up tying a couple of knots just to fill up those little holes, and they are not visible at all. So there he is. Have fun.